Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Worth and Wealth seminars. My name is Jennifer Duran. I'm a program associate here at the Office of Economic Empowerment. And today's topic is Shield Your Finances, Practical Tool for Fraud Prevention. But first, as always, just want to set a reminder that this is a recorded webinar and that also the recording along with the presentation and some additional materials will be sent out to everybody who registered by the end of the week. So stay tuned for that. You can find more information about the disclaimer in the chat. And it is with immense pleasure that I introduce Omar Mellon from Citizens Bank. Omar has many years supporting businesses in different regions of Massachusetts, helping small to medium-sized businesses manage cash flow, finance growth, protect against fraud. Very fitting and plan strategically. So we're excited to hear from Omar today. And Omar, I'll pass it on to you to talk a little bit more about yourself and get into it. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm very honored of being part of this seminar, and thank you for the invitation, Jennifer. So, yes, I'm Omar Mellon. I am currently a market manager in a small business banking in the New England North area. I've been with the bank for over 20 years. And I've been working in the financial industry pretty much my entire life, different countries and different positions. Right now, focus on small business owners and some consumers. So that being said, should I take it away, Elena? Should we get it going?
Yes,
I'm
please
sorry,
do.
Jennifer.
No, you're good.
Excellent.
Yes.
So today's module is about our fraud prevention practices and to get a little bit of additional information on the different methods and different ways that the fraudsters are using in today's world. So I'm sure some of you had experienced some sort of fraud, whether if you have done it personally or some friends or family members. But as we go through the presentation, you will start to connect the dots in some of these. So one of my main objectives, and I will ask the audience to ask questions. My main goal is to have at least one or two tips to take away and learn about these particular things. That will be success on this presentation. So I will touch a little bit about the different types of fraud, recognize and identify the red flags and different type of signs when we might be exposed or we might be uh, attempted to be defrauded. Some tips on what we can do to prevent it, and some sort of resources on how we can get additional support in the event if we're dealing with fraud. So what is fraud? Fraud is the act of deceiving someone for financial or personal gain. It can involve stealing money, uh, the personal information, or even our identity. The fraud is the biggest issue currently right now for the US government and for the financial institutions in general, not just here in the United States, but pretty much around the world. Is creating millionaires by financial losses, damage to reputation, damage to credit. So the best way to know is to get educated with these different methods and identify early signs and take some sort of measures with our own financial situation. Everything starts individually, and that's how we can prevent it on our own for ourselves, but also we can help our friends and family as well. So on the financial piece, there's quite a few ways to be defrauded. Number one, the kind of like the most common one was the frauds with our debit and credit cards. So, and one of these things is when you see, typically they start processing small transactions. That way we kind of like don't pay much attention to it. Transactions to build some sort of patterns in the system. And that way, the fraud prevention teams, they don't really pay attention. And once the systems, they start to build the transaction history, so they won't be able to react to it. So uh, years ago they started with subscriptions. When we used to subscribe to magazines or some sort of applications, or some type of organization. So usually there were transactions for $2.99, $5.99, and something that we just kind of like, when we are reviewing our bank accounts, we just assume that, oh yeah, that might be, I don't know, my AAA, that might be something that I'm paying, so it's not a big deal. And before I get to the other pieces, not just with the debit or credit card, but also what they're doing right now, whenever we use either or, I'm sure you notice in some stores like restaurants or bars, or they usually bring the merchant services device that is pretty much the equipment for you to process these personally and not to handle the card to any third party. And the reason of this is because the fraudster only needs your debit or credit card information, which is the numbers. They need the expiration date and sometimes the 3 numbers or 4 numbers on American Express for the security code. Once they have this information, they can do a lot of damage. They can go to the web, they can charge transactions, sometimes they can even issue separate cards. That's when they call it like clone devices. And they can start to do transactions in record time until the security departments, they identify these transactions and they put a block on the cards. Another way, this is a little bit more sophisticated. I'm sure you've seen wallets that they come with the RF protection, the radio frequency. And what they do, they usually stand next to you with a device. And with this device, they are able to extract the information of the cards that you're carrying on your wallet or your purse. Sometimes also, uh, close people from either friends or family, they usually just get the card information and they can start to defraud you in this way. Okay. But it's not just with the debit or the credit cards. Now they're also starting with the checking account information, which is big thing. So one of the good advices, and as a general information, United States is one of the few countries in the world that we are using still checks. And if you think about it, if you or someone that is still continue writing checks, when you see the paper check on the top left corner, you can identify all your personal information, your name, your address, and some consumers, they're using even their phone numbers. On the top right, you can see the uh, number of the check. And this is very important because they can identify what type of range of numbers you are currently using. The bottom left, on this funky looking font, you can see the account number, the routing number, and this is magnetic ink because that's how financial institutions they review this information to do the compensation. And on the bottom right is your signature. So if you think about it, once I get a check from you, I can see the way that you write, the way that you sign, how you're even like writing the dates and everything. And that will be easy to go ahead, and nowadays using technology, I can go ahead and scan these checks, and I can even order another checkbook with your information, and I can start to do some transactions. But this is not even it. They don't need to issue a paper check anymore. With the routing number and the checking account number, they can go to some other sites and they can authorize transactions in this way. Um, so we need to keep in mind when this particular type of fraud is happening, the fraudsters are not going to negotiate your checks locally, meaning in Massachusetts or Rhode Island or New Hampshire. Usually, when this happens, they go to some other states like Nevada, California, Florida, because it takes additional time for the bank that received this item to report it to the pay bank, whether it is Citizens Bank or any other local bank. That might take a day, 2 days, or 3 days. And by that time, the fraudsters probably they already collected some sort of funds from the bank that they deposited this, and they're not able to identify this scheme yet. Okay. Some other type of frauds could be also with the online scams. Online, we can see it all the time. And nowadays, with the social media, it's even worse. So, me personally, I've been victim a couple times, either on Facebook or Instagram, because based on the algorithm and whatever we are searching, you get all these amazing ads for the products that you might be interested on. Like recently, I was looking for some additional screens for my laptop, and they were a little pricey on Amazon and Best Buy when I was looking for this. And I started to get all these ads like on a really cheap price. And I was so excited and I just fell for it. I processed that transaction and I was hoping that they were good. Um, and this is something here. And starting with me, I always tell my clients and my team, sometimes if it's too good to be true, I mean, we need to reconsider that. So not just online, also when we are approached with all these type of ads from Google, from any kind of search engine that you have, and just clicking on some of these ads, we might be opening the portal of our computers and our personal life to these fraudsters. Because the way that they're doing this via online, they are hacking, whether if it's your mobile device or they're hacking into our computers, and everything goes pretty much hand to hand. So the online is bringing me also to the phishing scams, which will come either with phishing emails. Many years ago, I'm sure you've heard or you have received these type of emails that my mom fell for this a couple times, that she won a lottery from the king of Nigeria, and then she became a millionaire, but she didn't. She needed to provide some sort of information and all these kind of things, and and she was excited. And she came to me and she was telling me, like, honey, I really believe this is not a scam. And we always want to believe that that's actually true. And I used to come back to her. I said, Mom, tell me, when was the last time that you were able to travel to Nigeria or Africa, perhaps, or do you have any connections over there, or you haven't even dealt with any of these companies? So those kind of things that were kind of like too easy, but believe it or not, people still falling for this. Some other type of phishing scams is on Facebook and now Instagram and TikTok and all these kind of things. When uh, they realize and when they get into your patterns on how you use the web, they used to come to your contacts and they said that, hey, Omar got stuck in China and he needs some help to pay some sort of attorneys or transportation or all these kind of things. And friends and family, they get concerned and they said, oh yeah, like maybe Omar was traveling, but he didn't tell me. Let me help him. And then they start to wire these phones, and that's another way that they can lose their money, because once these transactions are authorized, and they whether if it's a wire, whether if it's an ACH, which is an electronic transaction, once these transactions are out of our bank accounts, chances are that we are not going to be able to get them back. Another type of phishing transactions nowadays, I'm not sure if you're familiar with WhatsApp, which is the chat application. Is very popular in South America. It's very popular for clients that they travel around the world, whether it is to Europe or Asia or Africa. It's the best way to communicate. So now companies are using this particular application to communicate with their clients, and some other companies and fraudsters are using this application kind of like to do the phishing. So phishing is very much they send a blanket text message or emails or attempts to thousands and thousands of people, and they're just waiting to see who's going to buy it, who's going to fall for it. And one thing that I want all of us to keep in mind is that fraudsters are professionals on this area. They're working 24/7, identifying new ways and new methods to get to people. They just don't stick to one method. Perhaps they're just always trying and innovating. As long as the financial industry and the government, we put different type of defense systems in place. They're always proactive on how we can break, how we can get into the consumer or the victims at some point. Identity theft, and this is being out there forever. And that's why I highly encourage every single one of you to protect your social security number, your tax ID number. If you don't have a social security number, your ITIN, which is your individual tax identification number. That should be easily found on a pay stub, on your W-2s by the end of the year, on your 1099s, on even on your tax returns. This information should be protected heavily. And because at the end, once they're able to get to any kind of this information, they can they only need these 9 digits, and they can register in different type of things, or even steal your identity. So what they use this for, once they have these numbers and sometimes a date of birth and perhaps your address, they can go ahead and they can apply for different type of loans. They can apply for I've seen it lately, very common on the applications like DoorDash or Walmart has another type of application, or all these type of delivery systems. Like, they're creating fake accounts with this information, and we don't even know what is going on. But by the end of the year, when whether DoorDash or Uber, whatever is the case, they send the 1099 reports and they usually get it on your address. You said, hold on, I never worked for Uber. I never worked for DoorDash before. Why am I getting this report? Well, somebody was using our identity to be able to get into these applications. And of course, they receive the money and they're not going to pay taxes on this. And not just for this. Keep in mind again, if my numbers of my identity has been stolen, none of them they will go ahead and create the new identity on the same state that I'm living in. You know, they usually go and they go to a state that is far, far away that I wouldn't be able to find this. It happens quite often with the taxes for the past 3 or 4 years. Back in the COVID era, when we were getting the assistance for the unemployment, when we were getting some sort of subsidies from the government, whether if you were a business owner or not, they were using this information to apply for these benefits. And some people, they didn't even know about it. And they realized after they sent these reports when we were filing taxes, and at that point we just found out like somebody took our identities. And like this, oh my goodness, there are so many type of scams that they're happening right at this moment. So I'm going to pause right now. Jennifer, I'm not sure if there are any questions. I know there is a lot of information, but now I would like to go to the next subject and see what can we do or how we can identify these particular situations.
Yes. We thank you. We do have a question coming in. Just give me 1 second. Someone who has been paying with check. Um, I'm not sure what they're paying, but I'm thinking they're being asked to pay in check, and they advocated against it, but I think the person wants to continue for them to pay in check. So how exactly would they handle, that situation? Like, for example, if your landlord wants you to pay in check form, but you don't want to,
Yeah, so
but
I'm
that's
going
their
to
preferred method.
correct. And that's a really good question. And I'm going to address this question in a couple of ways. So the, at some point, based on the heavy amount of volume with the fraud with checks, and due to the losses for the consumers and also some financial institutions, there are additional um, barriers and additional filters that we're putting on these checks. And I wouldn't be surprised. And here I am speculating that at some point, uh, the checks they will be very restricted and they will start to educate consumers to migrate to some other type of payment. So going back to this particular question, there are other methods that nowadays I've seen landlords, I've seen companies when they were receiving payments via checks, they're coming to their customers or their vendors and they're asking for some other type of payments. What type of payments? So they could say, hey, do you have a credit card? I'll take the credit card payment, or do you have ACH? For ACH for people to understand, very simple. ACH is the vehicle that we either can generate payments or can collect payments. So to understand, sometimes when we get that direct deposit, that is an ACH. It's an ACH that is credited in my account. Sometimes when I have a pre-authorized payment, like a gym membership or my insurance or my car payment or my any kind of loan payment that is under pre-authorized debit. That's how they're processing this via ACH. So nowadays, whoever still continuing processing checks, sometimes banks are not making the funds available as fast as they used to do it because they want to make sure that the check is a legit item and that was actually issued from the person that shows on that negotiable instrument. So it will be a good idea to have a conversation to the beneficiary of the check. Say, hey, do you accept any other type of payments? Can I give you the check but electronically? Can I give you, do you have a link that I can go ahead and make a payment directly? Or the best of the cases, process a payment with a credit card. If we don't have a credit card, so a debit card will be also another option. So in these financials, in this particular screen, is showing different type of fraud examples that I already reviewed. Um, there is one in here that says the wire transfer fraud, and this is basically the fraud that it happens when our computers are hacked. So what it is, if I'm about to generate a wire, it happens quite often on real estate transactions. When what I've seen quite often is that people that are closing on a purchase of a new house, and before they do the closing and the signing, they have to send the down payment via wire the same day of the closing. And they're getting emails from the attorney that is conducting the closing saying, okay, Omar, the wire is for, I don't know, 50,000, and you need to send it. This is my account information, and you see the email coming from that attorney, and you're comfortable and confident that that's the person that you were dealing with, and you go ahead and generate this transaction. And whenever you show up to the closing, the attorney said, Omar, we haven't received the funds. And at that point, it's like, hold on, I sent you the wire this morning. You send me the email. And once they start to verify the account information, that's when realize that they never received the funds and they never sent that particular email. So the best way, and I'm going to, all these scams, we already reviewed that. The best way that I can tell you to be aware, and that's the only thing that I want us to take away today, awareness. So one of the best ways is to check our bank accounts. If we are not having online access, I guess right nowadays, 99% of the financial institutions, they give us some sort of online access, whether it is via a phone app or to a regular browser. The best way to do is every morning to open the recent transactions. Hey, and pay attention to these silly transactions like what is this 299? What is this 999? And it's not just about debits or payments. Sometimes companies are giving us a direct deposit. Who deposited $4 on my account? Who deposited 50 cents on my account? Those are the things that we need to question. Say, hey, hold on, I don't know this company. And we need to go ahead and contact, whether if it's the customer service, your personal banker, your business banker, but we need to bring this up to the banks immediately. And that's the best way. And if you can do it, if you move your account heavily, it will be a good idea also to do it maybe a couple times on the day. So with the phone application specifically, whenever we're setting this up, you can always, one of the most important things is to have the right contact information. So first of all, we need to identify if that application or that the website that we are about to set up for our online access is the right one. Okay. So that's the number one step. We can do it whenever you're opening a bank account, whenever you're with customer service, and we need to validate that that's the right information. And it's very important to have cell phones and to have the right contact information. Why? Because if the financial institutions identify some suspect activity, we need to make sure that they can call us back. And I want to be very clear on this. Banks never, ever will ask us for personal information, whether via email or via text message. Never. Banks usually call you and they ask you, hey, this is Omar Mellon from Citizens Bank. I'm calling Mr. Carlos. Carlos, I just want to make sure that you are who you are. So they might ask you some sort of security questions. If I get this call out of the blue, I will be also very concerned. So I usually said, hey, do you have a callback number? I just want to make sure that this is actually a number from your financial institution. And usually when they make these calls, they don't ask you to recite the entire 9 digits of your social security number. They don't ask you to provide all their personal information. They might ask you for some specific security information, like, I don't know, if I live, let's say, in Fall River, Massachusetts, and they said, so you're currently living in Milford, yes or no? And I should say no. And they say, oh, okay. So some type of information, or they might tell me about the 5 recent transactions. So, hey, you went to Walmart and you purchased something under $50, yes or no? So let's be a little bit cautious whenever we get these particular phone calls, or sometimes when they call, they said, hey, please contact the security department to this particular number. These numbers, we can always go to Google and find out if that number belongs to that particular bank. And whenever we call the bank, try to be a little skeptic on providing all this information and find out the nature of that. Usually when I call my clients, because we cover all New England and we are basically virtual, we encourage our customers that they're a little concerned, say, hey, go to the local branch. This is my name. This might be my employee ID or something, or this is the number and the name of my department. And they can also validate that I'm the right person. Or I might tell them, look, I understand you might be a little concerned, but your debit card currently is kind of like blocked or frozen. So please go to your nearest branch and they will provide you with additional details. But please do not provide all the information out of the blue on these particular phone calls. Once again, banks, we do not require for you to, oh, click this link and update your security information, or click this link. Sometimes they said your password has been compromised. Click this link and go ahead and update your password. That means somebody is about to hack your phone or your computer. Um, the only thing that I've seen via text messages is called an OTP code, which is a one-time passcode. And whenever you're logging into your website, they say, type these numbers because that's the cell phone attached to that. And that's why having current information is so important, because sometimes I used to put my landline number and I'm not even next to that phone number. I was barely checking my messages. And if I don't have the accurate information, there is no way that they will be contacting me on real time to actually prevent that situation or to stop that situation. So that's the number one thing. Make sure that you have a good communication with your financial institution. Keep checking these transactions. and don't provide this to many other people. Um, and here in this particular screen, also they said, the fake tech support and all these kind of things. So once again, no financial institution will ask you to update your information without speaking with you. Okay. Another way to do this to kind of like prevent this situation, every bank, they have some sort of thresholds on your accounts. So usually you can get some sort of a communication every time when I use my card. I might get either an email or a text message. On bank accounts, I can also put a threshold. I can say every single time when I have a transaction over $100, I would like to be notified. Or if my account is going below $200, I would like to be notified. And that's another way that my communication is constant with my bank, and I'm aware of what is going on. Uh, there is another a good resource. If anyone has a credit card, whenever you are able to log into the website of the credit card company, we are able to access uh, any of the three credit agencies. We are able to check our credit scores, but it's not about to check the score. It's about to check what kind of accounts I have open under my social security number. One of the most popular applications is Credit Karma. And it's not about, again, to being like, oh, my credit score is 640, 650. Yeah, that might help. But the most important thing on these applications is to see, like, I only have two credit cards and one car loan, and those are the transactions that are showing under my name and under my social security in this application. If I see a third credit card or another type of loan, that's something that I need to be concerned. So everything starts from my due diligence. And also these particular sites, they tell you, like if you see something that you don't recognize, if you see that your credit score is changing dramatically, call this number. If you feel like someone got into your information, call this number. And this had happened before. Probably we remember when Target was a victim of a big fraud scheme, and they got into the information of many of the users. And Target came out and they were advising many people. When we got these particular emails, even if we are not victimized yet, it's always a good idea to go ahead and proactively either to let our banks know or keep vigilant on these transactions. Whenever you have any kind of electronic access, let's make sure, and this starts with me. I was a little lazy per se, that I was using just silly passwords. And maybe I was using my same password for everything. Every single application I had the same password, and that was a super silly one. Let's try to not use that common password type that usually people, they get their first name and a number or their last name and a number. Let's try to make it a little bit difficult. So don't use pets or something, because that will be easy uh, to steal per se. So let's try to make like maybe like a different type of characters and some other things. Write it down, and also create the habit of change these passwords quite frequently, pretty much every 2 or 3 months. Any other questions, Jennifer?
Yes, we have one more, which is, have you heard about hacking/fraud in investing accounts? If so, how can I protect myself from that? So, any fraud scams in investing accounts.
Correct. So yeah, there is so many types of fraud. And this it's kind of like falls on the same umbrella of the entire fraud with the financial institutions. So with these particular companies, and the reason that they're doing their approach in this particular type of fraud is because the investing accounts or the savings accounts that sometimes we have on a separate financial institution, we don't monitor these accounts on a daily basis, right? It's not like if I have some sort of funds invested, I check that once a month, once every 2 months to see how I'm doing with the interest and with the returns. But this is not something that I'm on top of it every day. And that's why it became an easy target. So these institutions also proactively, they're adding like a second line of defense on these particular situations. Sometimes might be a little painful because if I have something, let's say with Fidelity, and I just wanted to really quick check my balance, but then they said, "Hey, what is the name of your pet, or what is the name of this?" And they add in security layers. Sometimes I get upset. Sometimes I actually override the system. I said I don't want to have additional security things, and that might be a mistake because some other person, they can steal that information and they can access to this account. So the best way to protect ourselves with that is always, you can add that security feature that before any kind of trade, which is like investing in some other funds, change allocations on your portfolio, on even withdrawing some of those funds, they need to have a second layer of authentication, whether if it's a phone call, whether if it's a text message, whether if it's an email, but you can always set these kind of defense mechanisms that my preferred method, to be honest with you, is speaking with someone. And when I talk to someone, if I requested the transaction, they should know the details of that. If they start to ask me all this kind of information, I might be a little concerned. I said, no, 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 hold on. So give me a phone number that I can call you back and you can always authenticate. And now, before I forget, the best way also to protect ourselves. Whenever you get in all these phone calls, there are certain cell phone carriers that shows this might be a phishing, this might be a scam, but take the number and you can go ahead and Google the number. It's a reverse number check. And sometimes you can actually Google, is this a fraud scam, or this is a fraud number? And most of the times, that number pops up and say, yeah, uh, be careful. This might be a scam number or something like that. At the same token, do it with the website, which, by the way, on my own situation with the screens, it happened like 2 months ago. And I was even laughing, and my wife was like, "Oh, look at Mr. Banker, you got defrauded." I went and I checked the website, and then 3 weeks later, I never received my item. And I went back, and because people uh, reported this, then the website was taken down. And I also reported that with Instagram. So uh, one thing that I did responsibly is, if you have a credit card, one of the benefits of most of the credit cards is that we have zero liability with fraud situations. If we genuinely are victims of fraud, the credit card protect us, and then they conduct an investigation, but they can give us the money back. So whenever you're about to conduct these particular transactions, use your credit card. Sometimes the credit cards, they said, hey, this might be a sketchy site or vendor. Double check the transaction and make sure that this is legit, or contact us before we continue processing this transaction. So one of the ways to protect ourselves is for these particular purchases, and nowadays everything has to be done online. Let's use the credit card. Or if we are using a debit card or a checking account, the other way to protect ourselves is to have a separate account with a little balance, that if I'm conducting a transaction for $50, just keep on that account maybe $60. And that way they don't have access to the main account, whether if you have some sort of a larger balance to cover your monthly bills, or maybe you have that's tied to a savings account. It's always a good practice, if you don't have a credit card, just to have a separate account for these particular purposes. But once again, we need to take accountability on this, because some of us, we are under the impression like, oh, Instagram is sponsoring the fraudsters and they should be protecting me because these are not a legit websites, or my bank should stop this transaction because I didn't write the check, or my bank should be stopping this transaction because this was fraud. I can tell you one thing. Banks, they have millions of users and billions of transactions that will be almost impossible to track every single transaction. Whenever they are able to identify, it is also my responsibility that A, I answer the phone call attempts, and B, that I have the right contact information in their system. And that way we can communicate frequently. Any other questions?
Yes, one more. So I know a lot of banks use voice recognition for authenticating and security. But with the rise of like AI and like the fact that you can replicate someone's voice, would you consider that a safe authentication system, or should people like not opt into it if they can't?
I mean, it's such a good question because AI is getting stronger by the minute. I mean, we are some way, my team is part of the technology, and not to scare the audience, but Jennifer, you will be surprised on on seeing what they can do with AI. They can put my face to any picture. They can. Uh, I've heard myself part of conversations that I never ever had before.
Mhm.
But AI still being a a robot, right? So if you're putting the voice recognition, make sure that you put in certain things, ask particular questions, and even tricky questions. Let's say if I'm driving a Toyota Corolla, and then if I had that as a security question, and then if I said, oh, so what's the color of my Honda Civic? It might sound silly, but if you do these particular questions, and then at some point you can identify that you are not speaking with a real person. Sometimes there are a little bit lapses of time, because we got all these robot calls all the time, right? So they call you from a local number, which they're doing it right now. My local number is a 508, and I'm getting all these calls, and I might feel like, hey, might be someone that I interacted with before. So when I get these calls, and then I'm just like, they take like an extra second or 2 seconds before the robot kicks in. At that particular point, I identified that it's not a real person. And always ask for the callback number. If he's a real person, they can say they shouldn't have any issues to say, okay, call me back to this particular number. This is my employee number, or whoever is the case. Because sometimes when we have these particular calls, and people are about to defraud us, they they put us under this horrible amount of pressure, and they start to say like, hey, no, we don't have time to call you again. If you call back, you're not gonna be able to talk to me, or we're not responsible if you lose all your money and all these kind of things. We can take our chances, right? So I said, hey, I fully understand, so I'll take my risk, but don't fall for this. Some people are around, and please be careful. The holidays are the easiest target that they have, and fraud occurs most of the times before a Monday holiday. So when they do it on Fridays, Friday afternoons, and then that way some banks take a little bit longer to react to it. And when the holidays are coming up, Christmas and New Year's and all these kind of things, and Thanksgiving, Halloween, people are buying a lot of things. So it's easy for us to get, oh yeah, this is Omar Melon from Best Buy. I just wanted to confirm whatever. Oh, this is Omar from Amazon. And we might be able to go ahead and provide all our information. So once again, this might happen. Uh, and with the voice recognition, always ask for a callback number and say, what are you calling me from? If you're getting emails, pull the email address of the sender. So because they can craft the email that looks from a bank and looks so good, but go ahead and pull the email address from the sender. And if you can see that that's a regular email address, I don't know, from Gmail or Hotmail or whatever is the case, right there is not the right one. Or if it's from a bank, let's say that is the email address is citizensbank dot I don't know, es or something like that, dot org or something else. That's like, your email address should be citizensbank.com or amazon.com or something like that. So those are the kind of things like, hey, contact that entity and find out. I was actually recently attempted by the DOR, and was about my transponder on my car, and they kept sending me these emails that you're gonna get fined, and you might get arrested because we are not collecting the information on the tolls and everything. And I just sent him an email, and I even called them and said, look, I know I have plenty funds, nothing had changed on my end. Why you guys are looking for this? And they just confirmed that they having a massive fraud issue going on, that they're reaching out to their clients. Another curious case, because I know we're getting to the hour. Another curious case for the audience. There were a few towns here in Massachusetts, probably you saw it on the news, that the mailman, they got the master key stolen from the boxes, and from the main mailbox they stole the master key, and they stole all those the entire mail, and they opened the envelopes, and whatever was checks they started to negotiate those. So that's another reason why we shouldn't be putting checks on the mail, or if we can, try to stay away from it. And if they don't have any other ways to take payments, would be a good idea either to deliver that in person, or find some other ways to deliver. Um, we have here what to do if you suspect that something. And once again, if you feel like it's not right, if you feel like you're doing business with that particular company for many years, and suddenly without notice they started to change their process and their practices, and they will come to you saying like, oh, based on the heavy volume of fraud, we're doing this and this. Mm, hold on, make a phone call, or try to Google that and said, is, I don't know, my ABC company changing the ways that they're collecting checks, or is sometimes I pay for trash services, and they actually changed that. I never read the letter that I received. I called them and I spoke with someone and they said, yeah, Mr. Mellon, we changed this. We send you a letter on this. If you like, we can send it again. So something like that. But if you feel and have that hinge that is not right, I can tell you that you have a lot of probabilities that you might be right. You might be in the middle of a fraud attempt. And once you're in the fraud, so the first thing, you have to react right away. So what can you do on your end? Yeah, here on the second step, contact your bank immediately if you can. But let's say that the customer service is closed and whatever is the case, go ahead and change your passwords immediately. Change all the passwords. Whatever password you have, whatever access, go ahead and change it, even from your own email address. And then if you see like, if let's say that they presented a large transaction, report this to the police. Because let's say on a big scam, and I hope you don't have to deal with this, if your identity has been stolen, we don't even know what the heck they're doing with that in some other states. We don't even know if they're defrauding some other people. So filing a police report on time is critical. Okay. And then notify the credit bureaus. So on every single thing, and actually you can go online and you can find the three contact information of the credit bureaus. And I will apologize because I always forget the number of the name of the third one, but I think is Equifax, TransUnion, and of course I forget the name of the third one. It will come back to me. But
Experience?
there are three credit bureaus. Contact them and let them know. And there is also some government agencies that you can get, and you have access once a year for no cost of all your credit, your driving records, your medical records. And it will be a good idea for you to keep an eye on this and identify, hey, I never had this, or what is this? And you can always notify them, and they can put a block on your credit if you suspect on something like that. Also, through the Credit Karma application that I mentioned, you can always go ahead and Experian. Yeah, thank you very much. Who was that? Oh, that was you, Jennifer.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
That's
always,
true.
I'm sorry, but I always, when I have these conversations, I only remember two in different order, but uh, this doesn't have any cost. But go ahead and notify them. Sometimes banks, they work with two out of the three. Sometimes smaller institutions, they work only with one. But at least go ahead and notify them. And sometimes you can even block all your things. Also, it will be a good idea. Nowadays, this service is not as expensive. If you have any kind of like spyware or any kind of these antivirus systems that you get them as a benefit when you're a member of something, it will be a good idea to go ahead and check your computer. And if we have children in our houses, we're not exempt. But maybe my kid access to not a good website, and through that they got into that. So I know I'm not accessing these different websites, but somebody that has access to that particular device, they might. So it's always a good idea, maybe, I don't know, once a quarter, once every 6 months, to go ahead and do a cleanup and do it with reliable companies, or maybe bring it to the local gig squad or something of the local store, and they are able to go ahead and check if there is some sort of viruses in your computer. Any other questions?
No, that is it.
So I'm going to there are a couple of resources, and I know I mentioned tons and tons of information, and I'm sure I missed even more. Um, but this is something that is happening a lot nowadays, and it's happening by the minute. So please. you know, share this information with your loved ones, with your family, with your friends, and go ahead. If you haven't changed your passwords, change it. If you have a PIN number on your debit card or your credit cards, a silly 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, or my date of birth, change it. And make sure that the contact information on your own financial institution and your credit cards, go ahead and make sure that everything is current and up to date. And maybe the security questions, why not? Go ahead and change them, and it will be a good idea. But the most important thing is we cannot rely on third parties to protect our lives. Everything starts from us. And that's when we need to be accountable and we need to be on top of this. Check your bank accounts more than often. And once you build it, a quick routine, it gets much easier. I promise you. So, Jennifer, thank you so much for the opportunity to be in this space. For all the attendees, kudos to you. For me, this hour went by so fast, but I love these particular spaces. I love this organization. I love this state, and this is one of the wonderful things of the United States, that we have these resources and they are no cost. And congratulations for you, because you are investing time in yourself. And even if you don't need it, yes, Jasmine, yo hablo español. Um, so even if you don't get that much, but at least the awareness, you can share that with people and be more curious. And the more that you hear about cases, this is so important, because there might be cases that we don't even know they're existing, and they just came with some creative and a new case and fraud. So the more that we talk about it, the more aware we become. Once again, uh, congrats. Thank you, Jennifer. And I'm open to any questions, but thank you for the invitation again.
Yes, I actually just have some closing slides, so I'll share really quickly.
Let me stop
Um,
sharing my screen then.
yes, amazing. Okay. Beautiful. So before we head out, first of all, Omar, thank you for that amazing presentation. I will let everyone go. So for coaching, we offer free financial coaching if you're new here with Samantha Morales, the third party accredited financial coach, completely separate from us as the treasury, and completely anonymous as well, and also completely free for an hour. We do not collect your personal information. So we always encourage you guys, we will not defraud you. So no, we always encourage people to sign up for coaching. Um, right now, if the calendar is booked, you can email Samantha at mycoach@wealthin360.com and ask if you can be put on the wait list. Things are always shifting. Appointments are available up until December 15th. So, anything can come up and you can be taken off the wait list. So I highly recommend contacting Samantha. And you can talk about things like fraud, but you can also talk about budgeting, about savings, about debt reduction, home ownership. I mean, there's a vast array of topics that you can talk to your financial coach about. And lastly, we have Enrich, which is a financial education platform. In partnership with the state treasurer, where you can find things like webinars, mini courses, blog posts, you name it, it's there. And definitely there's information about fraud and a variety of other topics. So if you want to learn more about this topic from a trusted resource, please check out Enrich. And that is it from me. Yes, if you cannot get in contact with Samantha, definitely email her, and I will provide her email in the follow-up email that I sent to all of you who registered on Friday. So you can also find that email there. You'll be put on a wait list. and she should get back to you with some available, waitlist spots. Okay, so thank you so much for participating, for asking questions, Omar. I appreciate you. Thank you for taking your time.
My pleasure.
And yeah, we'll see you on the next one. Bye.
Bye, everyone.